South Carolina has a better chance of making the college football playoff than LSU and also has one of the biggest win projection totals of the entire SEC for 2025. PFF has released their projections for the 2025 season, and we have a deep dive. I'm very excited. I hope you are too. Come along for the ride. Locked On Gamecocks starts right now.
You are Locked On Gamecocks, your daily podcast on the South Carolina Gamecocks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, guys? Welcome into Locked On Gamecocks. I'm your host, Chris Marler. Hope everyone's having a fantastic weekend. It is July 12th. We are in the middle of the summer, but today we've got a great episode for you, and it also is 50 days until South Carolina's 2025 season begins. Before we get started, I want to say thank you to everyone making Locked On Gamecocks your first listen each and every day. Shout out to our everydayers. Remember, we're a free and available podcast wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at Monarch Money. This episode and the one from yesterday and probably the one tomorrow brought to you by our good friends at Monarch Money. Take control of your finances, guys. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. All right. We are battling a little bit of an injury here. We got like a something wrong in the back of like my tooth or something, and it keeps making me talk with a lisp. So if you hear me talk with a lisp, don't judge. We'll get through it. It is we're gonna play through the pain. It'll be fine. But we have a good episode for you today. I'm very excited. Here's what we're going to go over. Here are the topics. PFF released their 2025 power rankings for the college football season. And then along with that, they released several metrics, including projections to win the SEC, win the conference, win totals, make the college football playoff, make a bowl game, all the above. We talk about all that, and we also compare them with ESPN. We got some graphics on deck for you. We are ready to go. You guys know me well enough by this point. You know I love a deep dive. So we're going to get into one of those today. Let's get into the PFF numbers that were released. Now, they released their power rankings. We'll go through the top 10. I will tell you, South Carolina did not find their way into the top 10. But these are the parameters of the rankings, okay? They provide clear tiers, offering a comprehensive market assessment of each team's outlook and future prospects, highlighting team standings. All of the below information can be found in the PFF power ranking tool, which basically means this. Listen, it's the relative quality of each team as defined by point spread team ratings. Okay, the projections based on 10,000 simulations, and the strength of schedule is the relative difficulty of each team's schedule based on point spread team ratings, one being the hardest, 131 being the easiest. So those are the parameters. Let's get into it. I want to remind you, these are not my numbers, these are PFF's numbers. Let's get right into it. Number 1, Ohio State. 2, Oregon. 3, Texas. 4, Georgia. 5, Notre Dame. Don't have a problem with any of that so far. 6, Penn State. Still don't have a problem with it. 7, Alabama. Now we get interesting here. 8, Ole Miss. 9, Miami. 10, Tennessee. Couple of takeaways right off the bat. There's one team I don't hear that has been in the top 10 of every single other power ranking, including yours truly, in the country. And that's Clemson. Not in the top 10. Let's go to 11. South Carolina at 11. Michigan 12. Clemson 13. LSU 14. And then you have SMU, Mizzou, Indiana, Florida at 18. Iowa, Arizona State, Texas A&M, Louisville, Washington, Boise State, and Baylor. That rounds out the top 25. The other teams in the SEC, Auburn's at 30, Oklahoma at 31. I think Arkansas is at like 42, Vanderbilt at 63, Kentucky at 65, Mississippi State at 89. So going back to this whole thing with the teams from the SEC, South Carolina not only ranks 11th in the country, they rank 6th in the SEC. That's behind Texas, Georgia, Bama, Ole Miss, and Tennessee. Okay? Surprised to see Ole Miss in there, but that's also fine. Here's the biggest thing and my biggest takeaway out of this, and this is how I'm starting to look at stuff going into the season because you got to play the schedule in front of you. It doesn't matter where Indiana's ranked. It doesn't matter where Miami's ranked. It doesn't matter where some of these other teams that are not going to come across your schedule or in front of you at all until bowl season or if you make the college football playoff. It's not going to happen. There's only 2 teams on South Carolina's entire schedule that are ranked ahead of them in this power ranking. And it's Ole Miss and Alabama. And let's be very clear, they're ranked 7th and 8th. Carolina's 11th. Not some like drastic difference there, right? I think Carolina being at 11 makes up for a lot of that. But you talk about the teams that are behind them are most of the teams that I think that people in the national media are projecting as losses. LSU at 14, Clemson at 13, Missouri probably not, even though it's on the road this year, at 16, A&M at 21, right? Oklahoma at 31. Like, you're looking at this entire list, and like they are way ahead of everyone else besides 2 teams that are going to be slated against them on their schedule this year. Virginia Tech, who they open with, 41st. Okay, now that is a really good sign, I think, for a number of reasons. Like we tend to get lost in this idea of like, okay, well, South Carolina is projected to finish 7th in the SEC. Like, and we're going to talk about it either way because it's a daily podcast and it's also something that's in the off season. We have 50 days till countdown, blah, blah, blah. But that being said, like here to the end of time, it just kind of feels like it's like, okay, what's off-season power rankings for the SEC? Where are we going to put South Carolina? Oh, 7th, 8th? Oh, where are they going to finish in recruiting? Oh, you're going to say it's like 10th, 11th? Like, it just feels like those become like the standard, like, in the same way that you look at Georgia and Bama and Texas, it's like, well, they're definitely the top. Without really getting into their numbers or the roster or anything like that, it's almost like it's like a default. Like, those 3 teams are going to be at the top, right? For sure. LSU, they're going to be up there as well. I always want to give Florida the benefit of the doubt for some reason. Always wanted to give teams like Tennessee now the benefit of the doubt, like A&M always benefit of the doubt. Carolina's just not usually in that group for whatever reason. So it's kind of dumb to look at it in terms of like, well, you know, they're going to project to be 7th in the country, and it's dumb for 2 reasons too. It's dumb because that just seems to be where they are consistently slotted no matter what. It's like a blind ranking, right? It also is dumb because if you're 7th in the SEC or 6th in the SEC or whatever, most of the time, that means you're probably going to still be around top 12 or top 15 nationally, in regards to the rankings for all of college football, usually across no matter what metric it is. So that's why it's a little bit foolish to sit there and get super overreacted to it. Listen, there's a ton of numbers, and I'm going to tease you with this right here before we go to our first break, because I'm already somehow over 8 minutes. But slide over here. Look at this. Look at these graphics. We're at the next level right now. So, I'm not good at this. Here we go. Here are the odds to make the 2025 college football playoff. Shocking numbers here, especially with who's at number 3. But more importantly, we're also going to dive into the numbers between ESPN and PFF, because I think it's important to look at both, because a lot of times we look at ESPN and FPI and think, well, that's kind of stupid. They're not really good at those. What do they even mean? Strength of schedule is a little bit, wonky, whatever. And then you look at PFF. PFF has some very interesting numbers. When we come back, we're going to talk about the most interesting number in there, because it's not the fact that their win total is still only at 7.5. It's the fact that their projected chance of making the college football playoff is higher than several other key blue bloods in this conference. Before we go to break, though, I do want to tell you about our friends real quick at Monarch Money. Do you ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It is like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center where you can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. I tell you what, if you share finances with someone, how? Okay? Like, how do you do it without having added stress to your plate? And how do you make sure you have as much transparency and understanding as possible? Monarch Money is the way. Because here's the thing, it is not just something that is going to help you budget your money. It is going to help you build your wealth. And there's a very big difference to that. And I tell you what, if you're sharing your finances with somebody, building wealth is a much, much broader scope, and it's also much more important thing to do together. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. When we come back, we're going to get into the nitty gritty and into the numbers with these PFF and ESPN projections for the 2025 season, and they really will surprise you. Locked On Gamecocks continues right after this. And we're back. All right, let's get into this. How am I going to do this? Okay, let's first put up the comparisons. I think it's very interesting to look at both these, okay? So here are the South Carolina numbers for strength of schedule, win total, bowl, or chances to make a bowl game, to win the SEC, make the college football playoff, and win the national title. Keep in mind, like, this is between Pro Football Focus and ESPN. I think these are interesting for a number of reasons, okay? Pro Football Focus, we're going to start strength of schedule, 17th, ESPN 13th. Win total, PFF 7.49, ESPN 7.3. Just for easy sake here, PFF will be the first number I use, ESPN will be the second, okay? This is ESPN FPI. Bowl or chances to make a bowl game, 80.82% versus 82.4%. Win the SEC, PFF has it at 7.18. ESPN has it at 1.8. Make the college football playoff, 23.65% versus 20.3%. And then win the national title, 2.34% versus 1%. Those numbers aren't far off at any part. I think that's one of the reasons why it's very surprising to me. Because here's the thing. I'm going to read you these, and it's not going to be as visual, but I'm going to read you these because it seems to be pretty consistent with where they think South Carolina is going to land. Now, you can argue all you want with the win total part because I think that is up for debate for sure. But I'll also tell you this. The win total, even though the highest one is 7.5 and 7.3, that is low for every single team. The highest win total of any team in the entire conference from PFF is 9.3. No one else even had over 9. That was just Georgia, okay? The 7.5 wins that they are projected, it's only behind, I think, so Georgia is at 1 with 9.3. Missouri is at 2 with 8.8. Then Ole Miss, 8.5. Texas, all the way down to number 4, 8.3. Then you have Tennessee, 8.0. Bama, 7.8. LSU, 7.6. South Carolina, 7.5. The reason I think it's interesting is this. These numbers are all very similar. Now, the win total, I think, is the one I would have the biggest debate with because I think Carolina, the ceiling and floor will be pretty similar. I really do. Like the floor could be if they're awful and or someone, knock on wood, gets injured. That could be very different. Okay, so I'm not going to get into catastrophes could change all this, but the win total seems low, but it's low for everyone. So that part is whatever. Chances to make the playoff, being above LSU, being above Florida, being above A&M, all those teams. And here's the other part too. The thing I think is most interesting. You look at some of the numbers between, I'll just use the chances to make the college football playoff between PFF and ESPN. For Texas, it's 37% versus 84. For Georgia, it's 57 versus 79. Bama, 29 versus 66. Tennessee, 26 versus 39. LSU, 20 versus 30. Mizzou, with a 36% chance to make the playoff according to PFF versus a 9% chance at the ESPN. I'm not here to argue on who's right or wrong at all. A&M, 13% versus 34%. Auburn, 9% versus 22%. I am not going to argue on either side of which one I think is more right than wrong or anything like that because I think both are flawed. Both have, different systems of how they came to these numbers or whatever. Don't care to get into that, at least in today's episode. We can do it later, but not the main focus is today. The main takeaway I have with this is how consistent are the projections for the South Carolina team. 80% chance to make a bowl game? Yeah. Like, I think that's still probably even low. Making the playoff, you're around 20 to 25%. And by the way, this winning a national championship thing, that number's low across the board, like on both sides. So strength of schedule, almost the exact same. Making a bowl, almost the exact same. Win total, almost the exact same. Playoff and chance to win a national championship, almost the exact same. Both of these metrics, or not metrics, both of these projection systems, whatever formulas, like whatever you want to call it or whatever it would be called. Again, not here to argue with which one's right or wrong, but I will tell you again, it is odd to me that there's 47% difference between the two. 37% from PFF, 84% chance to make it from ESPN, right? Like in that scenario, yeah, I think ESPN's probably closer because I think Texas' schedule's a joke and they'll probably have a good chance of making the playoff. But the disparity and the difference between those two numbers is huge. I mean, it's massive. It's 37 versus 84%. You're talking about 47 percentage points, right? Like Georgia is 22% different. Alabama, 37% different. Tennessee, 13%. LSU, 10%. The Mizzou thing is 27% one way versus the other. But across the board here, for South Carolina, you have almost identical numbers. Yeah, you're 80% chance and above you're going to make a bowl game. I think that's, again, low. But like your win totals, yeah, you're probably sitting here, the bar and the floor is probably right at 7.5. Sure, that's fine. Like, say they lose to Clemson. Maybe they lose to Bama. Maybe they lose at LSU. Maybe they lose at A&M. Those are all plausible things. I don't think they're going to happen. But like 8-4 in that scenario would make sense, right? So like I understand that at least. Getting to the playoff though, and having those numbers not dip or be frantically different, and so like such a massive disparity between the two, which is not the case for almost everyone else in the SEC. That part to me is interesting because I feel like this is not something where it's like the default numbers we talked about earlier with like the SEC rankings or where South Carolina would fall. It's like, oh yeah, maybe they'll be around here. Like let's throw out a number. It feels like with all the question marks you have in place from across the board here, okay? Like from every team in the SEC, all the new players in the roster, all the turnover, the players you lost in the portal, the players you lost to the NFL draft, the players you brought in from the portal, in a recruiting class, like all the turnover at quarterback, right? That's a big thing that no one's talking about. I had this on an episode a couple weeks ago where I said, I think one of the biggest things that no one seems to be talking about as a strength for this program is something that isn't the case almost anywhere else in the SEC. You have almost no turnover on the coaching staff this year besides your OC. Almost zero turnover. And by the way, that OC turnover, Dowell Loggins was great in the final 6 games of his tenure here. Let's not pretend he was a world beater in the first 6 of last season or the year before or whatever, right? Like let's not pretend that like him versus Mike Shula is going to be some drastically different thing. I'll give you an example of a team I used to cover here, and it's the easiest one I can think of. You think about Bama when they had Kiffin to Sarkisian, or like Kiffin to Mike Loxley to Steve Sarkisian, and how high those numbers were. And then even with Bill O'Brien, how high those numbers were. They had Bryce Young. And then you have this massive fall off when you go to Tommy Rees. Let's not pretend that you are going from Steve Sarkisian to Tommy Rees with Dowell Loggins to Mike Shula. But again, the change and the lack thereof at the most important things, coaching staff and quarterback, those aren't a problem for South Carolina. So it feels like you have a very comfortably and confident feeling of where this team is going to be, how steady they're going to be, and like how stable they're going to be going into the season versus other teams. That's like, I mean, listen, you guys have followed me on social media. I don't think I'm the most stable person in the world. The ups and downs, right? Like, but I mean, like the difference in like, oh yeah, Mizzou, I can see 36%. Oh, I can see 9%. Like it's like a golfer that's like, what do you hit your 8 iron? Oh, I don't know, 160 to 220. No, you hit it like 160 to 170. Like there's like a consistency there that is like comfortable, understood, and also like very confident in like this is what I have. That is the play. That is the case for South Carolina. It's not the case for Texas. It's not the case for Alabama. They both numbers, both formulas or whatever you want to call them, metrics, like however you want to phrase it. Somebody smarter than me, please fill me in. They feel that way about Ole Miss. They feel that way about a little bit about LSU. They feel that way about Florida, even though the numbers are smaller. But like everywhere else across the board. And here's the other part too, guys. Everywhere else across the board, like Ole Miss is at 34% and 31%. But like Tennessee, difference of 13%. LSU, difference of 10%. Mizzou, 27. Florida is pretty consistent. It's 18 versus 15. Auburn, Oklahoma is 12 versus 18. And then you have like the bottom tier teams. They're all pretty similar. But those teams all have much and significantly lower odds to make the playoff than South Carolina. South Carolina is the only team that I just listed off, besides Ole Miss, out of all of them, including Texas, including Georgia, including Bama, that have the most consistent projections on both sides. So that is one of my biggest takeaways. I mean, maybe it doesn't make sense. Maybe I'm falling in love with something it's a mirage or an oasis or something of a figment of my imagination. But it feels like this is a really positive thing, on top of being very interesting, to say the least. So let's close out the show. When we come back, we're going to look at the odds to make the playoff for every single team in the SEC. Kind of look at it. And there is one team specifically that is shocking. I mean, just shocking. We'll go over it on audio if you're not watching on YouTube, but on YouTube, we got a graphic on deck that's going to blow your mind. Locked On Gamecock continues right after this. All right, guys. Listen, I appreciate you guys watching. Been a really fun episode. I think hopefully a entertaining as well as informative episode. I know sometimes when I get into these numbers and deep dives, I write it all down in pencil in my notebook. That's just my process, and I enjoy it every time I do. But I think it's hopefully being able to communicate the numbers in a way that makes sense, and also makes sense to you guys as well. So here's the last thing I want to talk about. This is the odds to make the college football playoff from every team in the SEC. This is from PFF. There's a team on here, if you're not watching on YouTube. Blew my mind. Just blew my mind. Now, if you're going through this, you're like, yeah, Georgia. You know what? Let's start at the bottom. Kentucky, worst odds in the SEC. 1.9%. Makes sense to me. Mississippi State, 3.8%. Arkansas, 4.9%. Vandy, 7.9%. Auburn, 9.4%. That's where I would have my first argument. I think theirs should be a little bit higher, because they could be a boom or bust team this year. Oklahoma, 11.5%. A&M, 13%. I would probably argue that one a little bit as well. I think they have a better chance than Florida just because the schedule is much easier than Florida's. Not a knock on Florida. If you're from Florida Twitter, please calm down. Get out of my mentions. You guys are insane. But I think that they have a much more difficult schedule than Auburn, Oklahoma, or A&M, really. Maybe the toughest in the country. But LSU, 20.2%. Now we start getting to the top half of the conference. South Carolina, 23.7%. Tennessee, 26.1%. Bama, 29.5%. I have listed off 12 of the 16 teams. One has not been named yet, and it's insane to me. Ole Miss, 34.1%. Mizzou, 36.3%. The third best odds in the SEC, according to Pro Football Focus, to make the college football playoff. Then you have Texas at 2% at 40%. Georgia at 57%. I know that putting Mizzou at 3 is probably going to make most people say this is stupid, this is a waste of time, and they don't know what they're talking about. I will tell you this, Mizzou's schedule, if you have not seen it yet, somebody just tweeted during the break. I took a short break here because it's stupid toothache. Somebody tweeted at me on Twitter and said, if South Carolina had Mizzou's schedule, they would be a shoo-in for the playoff. And buddy, let me tell you, truer words may have never been spoken, because Mizzou doesn't leave their home stadium for the first 6 games of the year. They have one of the easiest schedules, if not the easiest schedule, in the entire conference. It's a joke. I think PFF has it ranked at like 47th in the country. It is, let me see here, in what do you call it, ESPN FPI, it's 20th. But also let's keep in mind that like that is the lowest of any team in the conference. And also, let's also be very clear that there's no chance that the SEC has 16 of the 20th or the 20 most difficult schedules in the country. But that's where it is. That's where they rank. If South Carolina had their schedule, they would make the playoff. Schedule's a schedule. That's not the case. They don't have that schedule. Doesn't matter. I don't think South Carolina's scared of who they have in front of them. But that is why Missouri is there. Again, though, I keep going back. You look at like even the win totals. The win totals that they're projected at, 8.8, second most in the entire conference according to PFF. Just kind of shocking. To have that team there. Anyway, that is all for today's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I love a deep dive. I personally love getting into the numbers and stuff like this. I hope it was enjoyable for you guys. And I hope, again, you guys are having a great weekend. We did not touch on the Samari Matthews news because he, of course, after the show we put out last night, committed to Texas, kind of expected. That's a recruit and a recruitment that I will say still watch. A lot of time left, 5 months till signing day. So appreciate you guys. We'll be back tomorrow on Sunday with another episode. And then we'll be back Monday for my favorite week of the year. SEC Media Days kicks off about a mile and a half from where I'm recording this very show in Atlanta, Georgia. So appreciate y'all. And until then, go Cox.